Hello and welcome to another episode of the Career Revolution Podcast. Here you'll hear about big ideas, big inspiration, and people who've done some really big things in their career. It's the place to be to get inspired to revolutionize your career. And our guest today is Matthew Donnell, whom I've been connected to on LinkedIn for some time, and I couldn't wait to bring him on to the podcast to tell us about his story. Matthew Donnell is the founder and creator of Educ'sih. Educ'sih is an empowerment platform that provides free online education and support tailored to the South African youth with a focus on personal development. It's specifically geared towards the creative entrepreneurial youth. And Matthew has a fascinating story to tell us about his career, which is in credit risk within corporate banking, and creating this incredible platform, which is purpose-driven from Matthew's perspective. So without any further ado, let's welcome Matthew to the studio. Hi, Matthew. Welcome.
Hi, yeah, thanks for having me.
It's an absolute great pleasure. So we're going to talk about Educ'sih, and I want to hear all about it. And I want you to share what we can do to help and support you. And I really want to know more about the actual platform itself and who it's geared at. But before we get there, can you take us through how did a guy who's in credit risk within corporate South Africa retail banking get to be the founder of this incredible platform? What went on? Tell us about that.
Yeah, thank you. It was not a planned journey. I guess that's the easiest way to say it. As you finished high school, and if you are able to pursue studies and such, you don't really know what it is you want. Not many people at a young age have a skill set or passion that they can tie down and say, "This is what I want to be." So that was myself. I didn't really have anything specific. I actually did a 2-year course in sound engineering after high school, which that was interest driven. So I really had a passion for music and the technical side of it. So I did that. And then I had an opportunity to join a bank, which sounded very stable. So that was more the selling point. I guess I've always been somewhat good at finance, so it was an easy fit. And with most careers, I think stability is something, it's almost like a double-edged sword. We thrive for it, but at the same time, it doesn't really get you where you want to go in the longer term. So yeah, it's a comfortable job. For those that have been in banking would know. So yeah, I've been there probably 9 years now in total. And to the point that I've moved into credit risk, which is more of a finance-based role and sort of research and assessment. And it's a stable career. But what led me to creating my sort of NPO platform around education and to the point of intentionally trying to change my sort of career trajectory, I realized I had a big sort of passion for education and just sort of self-development for those around me. So my intention was to sort of move into the edtech space, learning and development field. But I didn't have the qualifications for that specific sort of field or any experience that relates to those roles. And getting jobs in South Africa, you kind of need to have one or the other. It's not just a case of I want to do something. So as part of deciding that's the career I want to go on, I went on a journey of what sort of skill sets do I need to have so that even if I'm lacking in experience, let me get myself up to a point of competence where I can say I'm able to do sort of the job that's entailed. So over about, I'd say, 18 months, I sort of dove quite deep into what skill sets were required, learning the technical aspects of designing courses, what goes into it from an actual educational point of view. And yeah, I just sort of built my skill sets with free resources. I mean, the availability of educational content on YouTube and Udemy, and there's so many platforms out there that really give you a lot of information. So I think definitely when you're wanting to pick a career, there's so much information for you to go and sort of learn from.
Mm.
So I was able to do that over, I'd say, a period of 18 months, and really just sort of master the skills that I needed to sort of be competent in that field.
Mm.
And then, yes, alongside creating my actual platform with those sort of principles and skills, I was able to also get freelance and consultation work in that field based on the skill sets that I sort of developed over that time, and then using my own platform as my sort of portfolio of evidence. So yeah, even without having the experience, those two really set me up to get into the field.
That's such a fantastic story because it's so, you educated yourself. It was self-driven and powered by this expression of a desire for you to move into edutech, but without having everything stacked up, as you said, you didn't really have the evidence to support that. So you kind of took it upon yourself to create this portfolio body of work that you could move into edutech, but by creating the body of work, you actually started to really enjoy this platform that you were putting out. So at what point did that shift happen? Instead of pursuing something full-time in edutech, you became more of the creator and putting out the actual product of the portfolio, which is a little bit meta if you think of it. But it's, that's where it is. I mean, before you answer that, I want to just take you back to figure out, how did you know that you wanted to be in edutech? Where did that come from? Like, you got the job in the bank, you got the stability, you did the kind of, the traditional route, let's say, call it that way. But this calling of edutech was there. Was that something that had always been there? What happened in that clarity for you?
I think just from a social sort of empathy perspective, I've always had an inkling towards mentorship, both as a mentee or as a mentor. And I think throughout my career, without even looking at what sort of role I'd like to do, I always took on with both hands, being able to try and help people, and not always with the destination in mind. So it's not to say helping people to get a specific role, but just at self-development. I've always been keen on when someone is actually trying their best to have a better life, educate themselves and get a new skill set and just sort of improve their own personal capacity. Being able to help people like that has always been a passion for myself. So I think realizing that over time, that, I mean, if I could find a career that let me help people on a larger scale, that would really give me a lot of satisfaction. So I think that's kind of what piqued the edtech space, because as you provide education, you do empower people. I mean, it's not results based. So learning something doesn't always give you an immediate result, but it improves who you are as a person. And more importantly, it changes your perspective on things. So the more you can educate yourself really and get some skills, it opens a lot of doors. So I think being able to make an impact in that field was definitely something I wanted to go to. But as I said earlier, sometimes you're going into a career blindly, so it takes a while for those things to develop. And then over time, I think, your real passion eventually comes calling.
Yes, absolutely, which it did. So then you started to explore content creation, putting together a learning platform, short courses. You mentioned Udemy, YouTube. I mean, there's never been a better time in the world right now, and access to information for us to pursue what it is that might be niggling or calling or kind of presenting itself to us. So congratulations for just going through that process and sticking with it. Those 18 months that you refer to, I can imagine must have been exhilarating and incredibly frustrating, because like anything, when we have to put ourselves out into learning something new, there's that excitement and exhilaration and it's all working. The pieces of the puzzle are falling into place. And then just like that overnight, everything, the puzzle pieces can crash and nothing seems to be falling into place. You sort of hit the frustration. I'd be keen to know, during that time, did you tell your sort of community, friends, family, people around you, did you tell your tribe what you were doing? Did you ask for support, or were you kind of sort of building it in the closet, so to speak, sort of doing it within in your own personal space and time, so that because you didn't really know at that point what you were creating. You knew you wanted to develop this portfolio. What support did you have, if any? What support did you choose to have is really the question.
It's a good question, because we all need our support structures in some shape or form. For me, to be honest, I'm not one that likes the limelight. So I generally, even with my platform, I don't tend to be forefront in any way. I wouldn't say I'm much of a sharer. So it was more my immediate family, my wife. I've got 2 kids, so they don't really understand, but they see the hard work you put in. And eventually it shows in your confidence and happiness, to be honest. As you say, it's a really tough period sometimes when you're creating something, whether that's a career or the platform in any case. But through that hard times, eventually you get to see the clear skies, and then that really shows in yourself, because then all that hard work has just come to fruition, which is great. So it's good to have a support structure. But I like to keep it small.
Okay, all right, nice. So people you weren't building in public, you were doing it in private. People were there to kind of support along the way, and you created everything about the Educ'sih platform yourself. This has been self-created and built from like everything that's online. And let's get into talking about it. It's a pretty amazing and pretty unique platform. I've been on it, and it's fascinating, but it's also quite simplified. It is what it is, and it doesn't profess to be anything else. And it's got these amazing free resources. So I suppose I'd love to know about the essence of what Educ'sih is and who you're looking to serve with that. And then let's go into talking about a little bit more detail about the different types of learning that you've put on the platform, because there's great stuff from side hustle all the way through to personal development, which is in itself what you were actually doing with it, right?
Correct, yes. And I'll go through the process of building it with the skill sets I learned. But to the first part, the crux of what the Educ'sih platform is, it's in the edtech space. So it's providing free education, which, as I say, can be a gimmick, but it's providing free education with a purpose. So there's always an actionable sort of outcome to it, where it's giving you the information to say, now that you know this, what are you going to do with it to sort of better your life? So it's aimed at the youth, especially in the South African context. I find a lot of people, the focused element of it is trying to build your confidence. So really, when we say empowerment, it's about you finding in yourself what is it you have a passion for, and then trying to build a life around that. So instead of just saying, I want to have a successful career, that could come in any shape or form. So it's saying, what do I love? Finding that and then mastering that skill, whatever that might be, so that you can say, I'm the best version of myself doing that. And then how do I monetize that? And I feel like that really just creates that fullness in life, where you're doing something you love and it's sustaining your life, your family, and your ambitions. So Educ'sih is aimed at empowering people, and the cornerstone concept is enabling and supporting people. So it's not just to provide the information, it's to then in the long run actually facilitate you then starting that business, running that business, advertising it, helping the business reflect you as a person and what makes you unique within your culture and your heritage, and really letting you express yourself with the skills you have, as opposed to trying, I guess, to conform to sort of globalization trends where you kind of just fall within the mold. Whereas us in South Africa, I'd say everyone's got their own unique perspective that they could highlight. So building that into your skills and your brand is really what we want to try help in the long term. And then the main focus in terms of delivery with that is to become accessible as possible. So towards how I built it, obviously I looked at what was industry standard. So in the edtech space, there's so many platforms you could use to make online courses, to have users on board. Those that are in the field know how many options there are, and some are great. But I found in using those in the early stages, It required a high data demand from the users, and I really wanted to meet the lowest of markets as a minimum. So every action I've taken, especially referring back to the users that are obviously engaging with the content, is trying to minimize the data demands, make it as relevant, not just from a creative standpoint for youth, but also from a cultural standpoint. So within the platform, I am not trying to make it accredited because I don't want it to conform to what we have with the SACPA standards. It's about making people feel relevant to the content. So there's a lot of storytelling. There's a lot of reference to the different languages we have. There's even slang in there. It's all about making people feel comfortable and then opening up to the learning opportunities. So in building it, I did everything through sort of web development. I do the graphics on my own with the point of trying to make it very relevant as well. And then also nobody has to sign up, so that people who don't have email can still access it. And it's obviously flexible for mobile, which I'd say is about 80% of my market base. So it's little things like that over time I've managed to implement that really reaches a wider market and give that accessibility to people that maybe don't have those opportunities. So I'd say my biggest impact point would be kids coming out of high school that can't afford tertiary or maybe don't want to go. I mean, sometimes you just don't know what you want to study. So if we could step in as that enablement partner to say, well, here's a plethora of options for you as skills and passions, find one, master it, and then make a business out of it. So ultimately for myself, all those skills I was developing over those 18 months helped me build all of these components myself. And then obviously, it does show you that as long as you're willing to put in the time and effort, you can learn anything and then do it yourself over time. It's just about being patient with the process, of not expecting immediate results. It does take a while, and eventually you get there. And I think for me, the key principles were by teaching myself how to do that and actually taking it through the course. Those are the sort of fundamentals I teach in our boot camp, where essentially we help people start side hustles. And essentially it's focused on utilizing the resources you have, what's free online, and really minimizing your costs by problem solving yourself, which is great for sustainability, especially in our country where it can be quite costly to just sort of pay for things. So where you can figure it out yourself, then that's great.
Wow, what an incredible ecosystem for, as you say, somebody who's fresh out of getting that hard won and earned matric certificate and doesn't have the clarity of where to go, possibly also doesn't have the resources and is kind of sort of stuck in between, well, what am I going to do with my life? I mean, this is the future. These are the people that are going to take the country to the places that we want it to go, the older generations. And what an amazing ecosystem and resource that they can get plugged into the personal development perspective of it. So they've got that kind of mindset training, but then also something tangible, like how to turn something that you enjoy into a side hustle, how to actually make some money. So potentially what you've created and what you're offering for, let's say, that individual, that matric leaver who's not quite sure where to go, is you're giving them direction, you're giving them a framework to channel their direction, to take them to the next steps of being able to create an income for them, should they then want to choose to invest in studying, or should they want to choose to further invest in their work. So, gosh, Matthew, I think no doubt about the fact that this is your purpose work, no doubt about the fact that this is huge for you. So let's talk a little bit about like the number of, I mean, are you able, look, without having email addresses and keeping it as available to, as you mentioned, the sort of the lower income of society. So somebody who perhaps doesn't have access to an email, doesn't have a huge amount of data all the time. Are you able to know who's really engaging with the platform? Are you able to talk about the numbers of people that have moved through it? Can you share some of that with us? Because I'm sure it'll be fascinating for our audience.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's the biggest part of problem solving, is being able to say, if I'm taking away all of these benefits that were more a
Mm.
benefit for me in terms of tracking, as you mentioned,
Yeah. Yeah.
how do I replicate that? So yes, I'm solving an issue in terms of accessibility, but I also need to meet my needs of being able to track what's going on. So
Yeah.
absolutely, that's one of the things that I managed to figure out. And with technology nowadays, to be honest, it's actually quite easy once you find the right solution. So yeah, even though there's no sign-ups, so to speak,
Yeah.
I can still track everything down to which buttons you click on. It really is possible. So yeah, no, for our first year, which would have been last year,
Yeah.
the total sort of individual users over the year was just under 5,000.
Wow.
And that was across South Africa, because obviously the entire platform is digital. So we're not
Yes.
conformed to any regional sort of restrictions. So it was just under 5,000 users. And then I think the learning hours were just under 17,000 for the year. So
Wow.
that was quite a lot for the first year. But it was also a building year where I was still putting the components together. So
Sure.
far for this year, we're averaging out, I think it's about 500 users per month, and round about, I think, just over 3,000 courses being attempted within a month as well, on average.
Wow. That's phenomenal. Now,
Yeah,
this is a free platform that
yeah,
you are, it's your social impact. It's your purpose
yeah,
tool of social impact. And the numbers that you've just shared, if those were to be traditionally plugged into an ed tech platform that had some
yeah,
form of sign up or membership or user based or
yeah.
even just hours on YouTube, that would correlate into a potential viable income stream for you to kind of create this into a business that's actually supporting you and your family and everyone else. I mean, the numbers that you're sharing are phenomenal. And
Mm,
it's just so exciting that it's not what your aim is. You're going to keep it, the control is that you want to be able to give it to the very person that needs it. And this is not going to be something that you're going to use to grow yourself into something else, or grow your business. I think that's phenomenal.
yeah. Yeah, no, absolutely. There's no intention on monetizing in the future, just because there's a lot of platforms that do, and I understand for
Mm,
sustainability. So I think it goes back to that concept of problem solving, because I'm
mm,
able to minimize my own costs at keeping the platform going. It really
yeah,
doesn't cost me much because of the free resources and tools that I use and advertise.
yeah,
So yeah, if it doesn't cost me anything, rightly so, I don't feel the need to charge anyone for it. And then
yeah,
by not charging, I'm really making it accessible, because even if you say for an acid test, 10 Rand per user, the problem is
yeah.
that makes the assumption someone has online banking or they can make a deposit.
Mm,
You really start putting additional restrictions. And for me, the outcome's not worth the measure. So, yeah,
mm,
any measure I can take to just remove barriers of accessibility, then I always go for that.
Oh, fantastic. Wonderful. Amazing work that you're doing. So, where is the future of education? Where could it grow? And I do want to go back to talking about some of the types of courses so that people
Mm,
listening here, obviously, we're going to drop in all the links to the platform. But perhaps let's talk about the next steps, the future. Where could this evolve to?
mm,
And we just had
it's back.
I think it was my laptop that went into screen saving time. Matthew, have I still
No
got you
problem.
there?
Yes,
Yes.
yes, there we go.
We're back.
Can you hear me?
Hang tight. We'll get Matthew back onto the recording. There we go. Sorry. That was
Happy?
system failure on my side. So what's the future of education? Where can you further grow? And apart from spreading the news so that it gets into
Mm,
the hands of people that need it most, what can we
yeah.
help you with?
So I think first and foremost, as a point of storytelling, we have a future vision section on the platform right there on the homepage. And that's my attempt at telling a story of where I see the future of Educ'sih going from the point of view of someone in South Africa and how they can use it as a partner throughout life. So yeah, for those interested in a longer term vision, that's there and it's a great short read. But the idea is really to support people in building a business around themselves as a person, what makes them unique, and their passions. That's the longer term ambition. So it's more, as I said, support and enablement. And the idea goes, you don't need formal education to get there in the beginning. Yes, you can at a later stage to just master your skills. But right in the beginning, it's all about self-discovery. So as you finish high school, it's about who am I, what do I enjoy, and trying to help you by showing you all the options, find through trial and error what it is I really enjoy, what makes me happy, and then how do I make that my life going forward. Because as is your segment about careers, a career is anything that sustains you throughout life, that you put your heart and soul into, because any career takes up probably close to 70% of your day. So you'd love as a choice to do what it is that makes you happy. So for me, it's at an early stage trying to figure out what that is. And then once you figure it out, that's where we'd like to hold people's hand and say, cool, you've got your passion. You're now starting to master it as a skill. Let's teach you how to build a brand around it, monetize it, and then in turn, eventually give back to your community. So it's all about building that slowly, because obviously it's infrastructure I would like to build and make available to make it easier for people to do that, because the creative and technical side is easy to talk about, but it's not easy to implement, especially if you've got a skill set. It's always very niche to that skill set. It's not to say you can just be a jack of all trades and make a website and do all of that. So the more we can help with that, almost as if you picture it as Canva, but for your entire life. So just trying to enable you to have easier outlet at creating the bigger brand you're trying to then sort of empower yourself with. So having said that, in terms of, so in terms of specific courses that help along that way.
And the passions that you speak to.
Yeah. So obviously the Hustle Up segment is our easiest MVP, because it's essentially 10 courses that say, here's how you find your idea, whether you have one or not. And then over the 10 courses, these are the actionable steps you need to take to actually launch your passion as a side hustle. And the reason I push the side hustle concept first and foremost is because if you can make it as low cost as possible with obviously the free resources that we're promoting, and it doesn't really cost you much to do, you don't need to make it an all or nothing venture. Take the risk out of it. Keep your day job, whatever that might be. Do it as a side hustle in your free time, because if it's your skill set, you'll never get bored or tired of doing it. It's not cumbersome. You're enjoying it, and you'll do it on the side until you can build it into a bigger venture. So it's teaching people how to minimize the risk and not always be all or nothing. You build this slowly and gradually. And that's how you learn over time, by just gradually making those steps to sustainability. So over that time, if you can make a side hustle, eventually probably will become your career. But it's just trying to keep it as easy to fit into your life, but also keeping that passion alive. So that's what the side hustle segment is. But as I said, we focus a lot on alternate education. So where we find there's a gap in the South African market for free accessible education, that's where, okay, well, let's make something about that. So we've got the Mother Tongue series, where it's introducing and teaching every single language in South Africa. So we've got 4 at the moment, which is Zulu, Setswana, Afrikaans, and Xhosa is coming out soon. But it's teaching you the basics of how to speak that language, with the intention of go and make friends that speak that language in the community, just to be able to make connections and communicate with people in South Africa. And then we have a high life segment that teaches you, for example, how to change a tire, not often taught to everyone. Starting a budget. And then in the longer term, it's also focusing on sort of course series that make your life better and enjoyable. So we're going to have one at the end of the year on sustainable gardening, which is making your own garden at home, so that you can have free food essentially in the
Mm,
long term.
mm,
And then we want to do a segment on local cooking, so teaching young kids how to actually cook food, but food that they're accustomed to as well.
mm.
So that's where I enjoy being the sole decision maker of the Educ'sih platform, because where I see a gap, I can fill that need, and
Yes.
creatively, I guess, which makes it more enjoyable.
Yes, you don't have to go and run it past some,
Mm.
board or team or owner or funder
No,
or investor to see if they agree with it. It's you're in
yeah,
control and you can get to decide it. And I love how close to the need you are. You've
yeah,
described how the platform really doesn't cost you a lot of money to run,
yeah,
that you kind of I mean, bootstrapping isn't even the word. You taught yourself how to develop it and
yeah.
build it. So you've kept your overheads really low so you can create this free
Hmm.
platform. So you're really close to the needs in terms of what can you create to really help
Yeah.
shift your ideal client, who is this precious South African resource who's fresh out of
Mm.
school and looking into the future and needing to sustain themselves, needing some
Yeah.
basic um, some basic needs of putting food on the
Hmm.
table, being able to sustain their business, and
Yeah.
from a personal development perspective as well, have some form of a mentor who's helping keeping them on the straight and narrow. Let's face
Yeah.
it. So that's incredible. So the course creation, the ideas of creating these courses really just come at you, I suppose. It's also about seeing the need that there is within our communities around us, living in this beautiful country, and then you're able to put together a course. Do you have people who help collaborate with any of those courses? Do you have sort of experts that come on? Would that be of use? I mean, to this audience and this wonderful international global community that's on LinkedIn, if somebody hears this and thinks, I want to help Matthew, or I want to partner with him, is that something that you would consider? Would that be an option for you?
Absolutely. So I know what my skill set is. I know where my speciality lies, and most of that's around building. I wouldn't say it's content specific, because you can't know everything. So absolutely, every course I do, I have it as an idea, but to then get the content, I always partner with an SME in that field, and I tend to stick to people that are proficient and excelling in that role. So, for
Mm,
example, if I'm doing one on, so like the alternate careers are a great example. If I'm doing one on a photographer, the SME for the course is an actual photographer that's well established. Same as the tattoo artist, and so on and so forth. So absolutely, content is king, especially when it's coming from a credible source. So yeah, if anyone has a either alternate career or is a specialist in their own right, then yeah, absolutely always willing to partner with them to create free accessible education. And that's the key. As long as they're willing to share their knowledge for free,
mm,
then yeah, always happy to do that.
fantastic. Matthew, thank you for listening to the call that you had to do something that was purpose driven, and for being brave enough to actually create it and build it and put it together, because that's a leap of courage in itself. There's I love I often say, imagine what we could do if we did something about what we imagine. You did something about
Sure.
what you imagined, and the numbers that you shared about the people in its first year that moved through your platform
Yeah.
gives me goosebumps in terms of the impact that's having within
Yeah.
those minds, within the hearts and the minds of the people that need it the most. So to everyone who's listening, you're going to find all of the information about where to follow Matthew on LinkedIn. And you might be watching this as a LinkedIn Live. You might be listening to this in a podcast format on any of the podcast channels, or you might actually be catching it as a replay on YouTube. So all of those spaces have place for you to engage and ask Matthew any questions. So please, by all means, do so. But we're going to drop the links to Educ'sih. But Matthew does he does a lot on LinkedIn. It's where I found you. I came across this
Yeah.
incredible stuff that you were posting about, and I couldn't wait to get you on the platform. I couldn't wait to book a time that would work for this conversation. So really, Matthew, thank you for the work that you are doing, and thank you for listening to your career revolution. I can't wait to see where this is going to go in terms of Educ'sih's impact
Yeah,
and growth. And I'm definitely going to hang close to you because I think you are a builder and you're going to be building throughout your career. So I'll be here to watch it, and hopefully we can get you back on the on the podcast
definitely.
in the future. But as we end off, I would love to ask you to share a revolutionary tip. I mean,
Hmm.
tips or tip, it might be more than one thing, but what would be the singular thing that you would like to say to somebody listening today who might be where you were at a couple of years ago and who's got this thinking, got this thought, and know that they can do it without needing to spend time, without needing to invest money, but it's going to take an investment of time? What would you say to that person? What's your revolutionary tip to where you were when you decided to build Educ'sih?
Yeah, I think a sort of phrase that I often use is never say no to a new experience. Always try to go in eyes wide open, because I find you'll never find your passion until you try everything. No one knows what they're going to be good at. No one knows what they're going to enjoy until they try it for the first time. So I think never put up walls and barriers just because you feel like you might get looked at differently, or you feel like it's not something that fits your personality. Give it a try. At least you can say at the end of it, I don't like that. And then you can try something else. But I think, yeah, try and widen that basket as best as you can, because once you find that thing, it'll stay with you for the rest of your life. But you've got to be open to trying to find it.
Power words from Matthew Donnell, founder and creator of Educ'sih. Thank you for your time. It's been an absolute pleasure talking to you, and we'll be seeing you on the Educ'sih platform. So thank you, Matthew. Thank you so much.
Thank you for your time.